Hey, 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 Fit Mama. Jen Oliver here, your host of the Fit Mama podcast. This is the work in to your workout. Hey, 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 and welcome to this episode here with my man, my king, my husband of almost 10 years, Chris Oliver. Welcome.
Thanks for having me on.
I'm so excited to have you on. And this culminates our 4-part series on sex. So we had part 1, 2, and 3, where I talked a lot of intimate details about my life, about our sex life, about things that I like, and voicing how did I get to that point of being open enough with you. And you and I have been together, babe, now for almost 15 years, which is crazy. We're in that 15th year. So, a lot of things have happened. And if we think about the people we were 15 years ago, the people we are now, a lot has evolved. So as has our sex life. And I am willing to go out on a limb here, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but the last year probably has been our best yet, and it keeps getting better. What do you think?
Well, I hope that applies to everything in our relationship. But I know,
True.
like everything, there's ups and downs and there's ebb and flow and all those different things that exist in a relationship, just like in life or in my job or everything else. But no, I think we're at a real good point. And I think, again, so much of it has to do with just the open communication that's happened over the last little while. And, probably to be honest, too, that we're beyond a little bit of the baby years of our children's lives as well, which is a part of that, too.
Hugely, hugely. I think that's such a good point. And I think we'll go back and kind of start there because when it comes to, before we had kids, we were together for about 7 years before we actually had the baby. So let's say 6 years before we got pregnant, right? So pregnancy and postpartum and having a newborn baby, these are things that definitely have a huge impact on sex in general, our sex life, how we feel about ourselves, how fatigued we are, how energized we are not, and how things really function and work. So take me back. I want to hear from you because I don't know that we've ever really even talked about this. We talked about having kids. We wanted kids. We were ready. We planned for it, all those things. But once I was actually pregnant, I remember it being kind of weird for you when I had the baby in my belly and we were having sex. I remember you kind of being like, I'm not so sure, especially when it got to the end and that big belly, right? Like she was right there.
I don't know if I remember it that way completely. Certainly I was always conscious of making sure that you were okay and being, I guess, sympathetic to what you were going through and making sure that this is something you wanted and you weren't just doing it for me. And I think that was a big part of that. But I think even going back farther, I think about the early parts of our relationship, and I got to think this is just not unique to us or it's all new relationships. It's like there's an insecurity about even knowing if this person likes you or loves you or whatever it may be, let alone, getting into some of the depth and some of the taboo that sex holds over some people. So I think that's been a big part of it too. And then I think the baby factor is another one of those moments where it's like, okay, is she just doing this for me because she knows that I want to have sex, or is this something she actually wants? And you're real good at confirming that was something that was good for you at that point, and you loved it.
I was horny AF when I was pregnant, that's for sure. But you know what? Let's go back to that very beginning, because I think you're right. When you start thinking about the beginning of a relationship and, the dynamic you have as a couple and the things that you're open to wanting to do at the beginning. How often I can't tell you that I talk to people that did things at the beginning of their relationship to hook their man or woman, to connect with someone, to say they like this when they don't really like it. Not even regarding sex. We always laugh at my parents because my stepdad used to pretend he liked sushi for my mom because she loved sushi. And they would go out and they'd go for sushi and he would just be mortified that he had to be there eating sushi. But he wanted her to like him at that capacity. So sexual or not, looking back, were there things that, you or I did, but even to you, the fit mama here, are there things that you maybe did or didn't do that you felt what if this person judges me? I mean, I know you and I have talked about this now, some of the stuff that we do, and we go, oh, how have we not done this earlier? And it's like, well, because I would have thought you'd thought this of me, and you would have thought this, if that. So we just never did it or broached the subject. You know what I mean?
Well, and again, I guess it comes back to that what we said is like when you judge. I mean, when you judge another, you judge yourself, and it's one of those things that it's hard to put yourself out there and sometimes say exactly what you like or what you need and all those different things. And I mean, we're jumping around a little bit, but the analogy I thought about when you asked me to talk about this was basically that you and we don't like the same foods.
Mm-hmm.
We don't like the same foods, and we don't eat the same food every day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like when it comes to sex, it kind of struck me as being exactly the same. It's like, why would someone think that number one, doing the same thing every day would work?
It's exciting.
Yeah, it would be exciting.
Or tasty or whatever. Yeah.
And then the same thing when it comes to food. Why would I assume that you like exactly what I like when it comes to sex? And that I think has probably been. I mean, I think we've always been pretty good at trying different things, but certainly, again, I think it's become more open over the last year or so, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I mean, this goes back to the first 3 parts of this series was talking about that openness, right? And I mean, I guess once you get pregnant and once you have a baby, there really becomes an openness because, you're just in the most vulnerable position while you're birthing a child and you're in pain and you're going through a huge life change, bringing a human into your home or more than one. And that openness, it's almost like, moms joke that there's no TMI after you have kids. It's like, we've seen it all. We've thought of it all. The baby is being born. And, some dads don't go down there and look and watch their baby being born because that would just weird them out or freak them out. Or they're, I'm like this. I don't like blood. I don't like bodily fluids a whole lot hanging out. I get very nauseated. So I'm prone to fainting. So I can get that part of it. But let's talk a little bit about that openness.
Well, I don't think I was bothered by that part. Like pregnancy-wise, I think I was more fascinated, and I think that's generally how I approach things. But as you know about me a little bit when it comes to sex or some of these supposed taboos and stuff like that, I certainly don't buy into that, and I don't generalize, and I don't think in those terms. It's really. It always comes back to me, and maybe the only good advice I have for anyone is that if you give, you receive. And it's constantly thinking about our relationship, not just sex, and saying, what would be beneficial for my wife? What would help my wife? What would serve my wife's needs? And if I think about that, if I think about always serving your needs in some way, then I'm pretty sure good things will come back to me in the relationship. And again, not just sex. It could be just that you serve my needs in some way. And, you put the girls to bed one night when I'm tired versus, me doing it every night or whatever it may be. But all those different things that come with it. But it certainly applies to sex directly. Yeah. And that is, again, a number one thing is that I want to make sure you're happy. Because if I know you're happy, then I'm going to probably get more sex and I'm going to enjoy it more. Because, again, there's no question. If you enjoy it, I'm going to enjoy it. Yeah. And that's a part that I think maybe people don't give enough attention to, the fact that both partners have to enjoy it to have the optimal experience.
Totally. And I think for, going back to that newly postpartum phase, it really is about refinding that enjoyment because, a baby brings a lot of joy, but it also brings a very high level of stress, pressure, fatigue to the point of exhaustion and brain fog because you really just aren't truly yourself without that sleep and the self-care that we might want to do at that time. How can we sort of go back to thinking, how did we start back up after we had the baby? I mean,
well, in thinking about that,
remember, I was in a fog.
No, I don't remember it either, but I am guessing, and I think this is actually the one time, like regardless of roles in the relationship and all that, where I think the woman has to take charge because I think the man is filled with so much uncertainty about whether it's good for you or not. And just going, okay, she's tired. She's obviously doing all these amazing things for our lives and our family and our baby. And I don't want to force myself upon her, and not obviously in an evil way, but just in a way of saying, hey, listen, I need it. And it's like, if you would, as the woman, kind of lead that time in particular and say, listen, yes, this is good. Yes, I want this. Yes, this is okay.
Yeah.
Then I think that makes it a lot easier for the male, I would think, in that role.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, honoring the fact that it's not okay, which is just as important as like, I would be very sensitive to during that time saying, okay, look, you're doing this amazing thing. You're growing this human inside, and then you're, popping this human out. And all of a sudden it's like, what is okay for me to do to you sexually at this point would have to be led, I think, somewhat by the female. It'd have to be female led.
You know what? You made some really good points there. And I think the maybe most difficult part that I want to highlight of that is that, women around that time, like you said, they've gone through a lot, they're doing a lot, they're all hands on deck. And, having a relationship and bonding with a new baby is so intimate in itself, right? And, the same hormones that are released when you orgasm are released when you're breastfeeding, 5-10 times a day at the beginning. So, in a way, women, our needs are kind of met, if you will, quote unquote, in that way. And it's not that we don't need you at that point or we don't want you, but I do remember the times of like just going, it's just too much touch, right? It's, these boobs are for the babe. Like it just feels weird to have you sucking on them at the same time or, so I know for us, that was kind of a area off hands for a while. And I don't know if other people do that because maybe that's, not that way for them. But for me, I just remember orgasming and my boobs actually starting to spray everywhere because it was my body going, oh, there's not a baby here. What's happening? Right. So our bodies and our hormones as women are doing so many things that we can sometimes go, oh, this makes sense because of this. And most of the time we go, what the hell is this? I don't understand. It makes no sense. I'm screwed up. And we start to blame ourselves, right? And maybe we have no need or want for our man. So what in that time would you say?
Well, and I'd say that's fine. I mean, I think that just has to be expressed in that way to make me as the male understand that it's not suddenly me. Yeah. Like it's not that you're not attracted to me or you don't want to have sex with me. Yeah. Eventually, it's just literally this is what's happening. Yeah. This is the biochemistry of this, and like maybe that's too in depth for some people, but I would value that explanation and just say, okay, I get it, I understand it, and I do remember that. I remember that part of it, and it's fine. But I think at the same time, and the other part of it is that, we talked about judgment, and I think the woman has to understand that the male probably will go find other avenues to have release, and that would be masturbation, and certainly I think if you explain it the right way, they would, certainly in a loving relationship, honor your realities, and you would have to honor theirs, I think, as well.
You brought up two things for me in this. Number one is, that communication piece. That's huge because I don't even know if at the time, I did say or do anything that would help you. I mean, at the end of the day.
No, I remember the breast explanation.
Yeah, I definitely knew that was a thing. But I mean, it really is, having those conversations and not saying it very flippantly. Like I've talked to women before and, I talked to so many fit mamas who they will happily and comfortably say to me, I don't feel like sex. I don't want my man right now. He can go find it somewhere else, like jokingly, right? But it's like, okay, but if he does, how do you then talk or feel about that? Well, he's looking at porn and masturbating. Or
right, we're not talking about outside the relationship.
Yeah, no, it's not he's going to find another woman, which is a whole different story. But it's how does a woman then, because around that time, like I said, I work with a ton of fit mamas, and across the board, they are self-conscious about that time with regards to their body. They're carrying extra body weight. Their body doesn't look the same. Their body doesn't feel the same. They might say, I don't feel like having sex with him, but all of a sudden he's looking at porn and now I feel like even worse about myself. Maybe he doesn't want me. Those women have big boobs or they're hot or they're whatever. I'm not. And we have this whole other dialogue. So let's open up this conversation about, porn, masturbation, like where do we go and how do we make sure that, that's not cheating on you, partner. It's I'm loving you so much. I'm not getting enough. We've discussed this. This feels good. Like, do all those elements have to be in place for, I mean, I don't think we talked about it in that depth at that time. I mean, I think I always knew you looked at porn because you masturbated, and guys seem to, I mean, I masturbate, I don't have to look at anything, right? But guys do.
Well, again, I think it comes back to saying, like, for how many relationships do you actually have to forget about the baby? How many relationships actually have a conversation where one of the partners would even ask the other partner if they masturbate?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, like, again, like,
yeah.
I don't know, if you're away from me or something like that, I'd actually ask you, hey, have you?
And you know what?
Because to me, that's kind of attractive.
Well, and I was kind of embarrassed at the beginning when I first was, right? And it was like, okay, I had a vibrator. Is that going to make him feel bad? Like, he can't make me masturbate or orgasm the same way or what? But it's like, those are totally not related.
Well, again, so much of everything in life is ego, isn't it?
Yeah.
As you tell me every day I'm with you. But, ego and confidence are the two things. And I think if there's one thing to say why, if our sex life is better now than it was, it's because of confidence. Mm-hmm. I mean, and that's, and we can come back and circle back to confidence, but I think that's such a huge part. And obviously that translates so well to what I do for a living, is trying to give people confidence. And, you giving me confidence or me giving you confidence has opened up completely new avenues. So when you come back to masturbation, then that's a huge part for it too. And it's not like, again, I tell you or I text you when I do it or anything like that. But there is at least a knowledge in our relationship that it happens both ways. And
and you're right. It kind of does turn me on to think like, oh my God, he's doing that while he's away. And I talk a lot about being away from each other in absence in the last episode, because for us, that's a huge almost bonus. We're away so much that when we're together, we're so into each other. And when we're away, we get to increase that anticipation. So we could almost think of it as that at that postpartum time or around that time, knowing, hey, it's going to get better. Let's anticipate that that's going to get better. But in the meantime, let's really communicate that this is what we need to make sure that we maintain our confidence in this relationship, right? I'm not worried that, well, I'm not feeling like it for a month or I'm bleeding or this, that you're out finding another woman, right? And for me, you looking at porn and her having big boobs or blonde hair, two things specifically I may not have, I don't feel like she's taking over my spot, And how, as a man, would you communicate that to say, hey, I'm not picking her over you. I'm releasing in this way, and it's not a comparison. What do you say to that?
What do I say to that? Well,
I don't know if you have big boob people that you masturbate to. We haven't gone in that much detail, but still.
No, but again, if you ask me the questions, I would openly tell you any of the answers. Mm-hmm. I mean, at this point in our life, I mean, again, like, I think the open and honest part of our sexual relationship is actually what has probably helped us get to another level. Yeah. Is just there's this next level sharing and this intimacy that comes from me telling you or you telling me what you actually like. Mm-hmm. And again, like, not to give another food comparison, but I remember, you'll laugh about this, but maybe the only dish I ever made you was chicken parm way back when I was trying to woo you. And I think about that and go, okay, look, if she didn't give me honest feedback about chicken parm, I would be making the same chicken parm for her all the time, having her act like she likes it, and me thinking I'm doing something good. But meanwhile, you're just enduring. Yeah. Right. And I think people do that in their sex lives all the time. Much. You just, he likes this or he doesn't like this or she. And then you just do it. And it's like, it can be so much better if you just talk. And again, I don't know if I'm answering your question, so maybe you have to re-ask it. But the other part that comes with that is that I think we're most honest about talking about sex when we're having sex.
Totally.
Which may seem weird to people, but it's not like we're talking about our day or anything like that.
No, or talking about the kids. That's a killer in the instant.
No, I know for sure. But it's like in those intimate moments where, you can bring up whether it's a fantasy or something that you really like and something like that. And then that's been a big bonus, I think, for us to move forward a little bit with some ideas.
I agree. And I think openly talking about, the porn or masturbation and us, you asking me, hey, when I'm away or you're away, did you masturbate today? it does add to the excitement. It adds to that understanding. It adds that communication and intimacy that we're having across, and even if you just were at work, and I'm texting you or sexting you, in our private way or whatever, it makes it exciting and it makes us feel connected, because I think it's such a disconnect when people close in on themselves, and with what you said, that judgment, it's like, oh no, I couldn't tell him that this was really a fantasy, right? Or you are seeing something in porn that might really excite you, and then you'd go, oh, Jen would never do that, or that would be wrong, or this and that. And it's like, okay, well, would it be wrong? Why would it be? If it turns you on and if it's not obviously hurting anybody, you know what I mean?
Well, again, there's that assumption that we all make about certain things, and then how do you know? I mean, and then you're afraid to ask, or you're afraid to bring it up, and then all of a sudden you're in this spiral of just doing the same thing or not doing the things you really want. So, I mean, when it comes to the masturbation part, I mean, you kind of mentioned, well, how do you make that, say, the woman more comfortable with the fact that you're doing it? Is that, honestly, again, like if we're having a great sexual relationship, then make it aware that part of masturbation is that I'm fantasizing about my partner.
Yeah.
Like, even if I'm looking at something else, I'm visualizing, I'm anticipating that this is going to be me and you in this example. And I think I've expressed that to you a number of times to say, hey, listen, I mean, you help me masturbate better.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I think the big thing too in that case is your appreciation. I mean, you telling me that is definitely huge, because that makes me obviously feel good, but you encouraging me to masturbate, you encouraging me, you buying me a vibrator, right? You buying me something that you would love to see me in, an outfit or something, right? You buying those things for me gets me excited, knowing that I am going to please you, right? And us opening up and talking about that, it's not like, hey, Jen, I'd like you better if you put this outfit on. It's no, this is going to enhance my enjoyment of what we're already doing, what we're enjoying, right? And you encouraging me to masturbate, let's say, or saying, hey, did you do it? And if I say yes, you're like, oh, yes, tell me about it. And it's exciting to you. That encourages me to do it and makes me not feel like, oh my God, I'm being bad, or, oh, I'm doing something wrong. And, we've had a lot of, times where we've brought the vibrator into our actual you and me in bed at that time. It's not, I'm only using it when you're not there. And that enhances things, because there's so many levels of what we feel in that moment. And you not being, whether it's your ego or whatever, being in that moment like, I'm not a man enough, and she has a vibrator and me, and she's even more pleasured. Oh my God, I'm not good enough. Or instead you're, oh my God, I'm making all her dreams come true, which is what I love about you encouraging that.
Again, unpacking so many things there, but we'll talk about this, but women can orgasm more than men.
Yeah.
That's fact, right?
Yeah.
So you having a vibrator while we're in intimate moments, and me still orgasming, it's no big deal, because you can do it multiple times, and I can do it probably once.
I know. Sorry about your luck, babe.
I know.
We have so many good ones.
I don't know why that has become, something affecting a male ego. Like, if you need something to help you, or you like something to help you, then I'm cool with it, because I know at the end of the day, you might have it with, you might have an orgasm with whatever you're going to choose to use, plus me.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just multiple times more than that. But the other thing that...
So true. Good point. Yeah.
The other thing that I think you brought up many times within kind of my understanding of sex and relationships and stuff like that is that men, certainly it's more common and more known that men masturbate, whereas a lot of women, it's kind of a taboo a little bit. But I guess the question is, like, I don't think men sit around talking about masturbating. Like, do women sit around and talk about masturbating?
Not enough, but I mean, we do, but no, not enough.
Because the point is that you and I, or as partners, we should probably spend more time talking about that, because probably what's happening when you're by yourself is what you're most into, what you're most excited about, what you're most, helps you get off, I guess, in that sense. So.
Yeah. I mean, definitely just opening up about talking about that stuff, you know? Like I cannot tell you how many women sit around and complain about their husbands or their man or woman and say, you know, he leaves his towels on the floor, he always leaves the dishes in the sink, right? And it's like, I literally will say to them, when's the last time you gave him a blowjob and told him how much you love when he cleans the dishes at the same damn time? Because honestly, and maybe you're thinking this sounds crazy, you're looking at me going, okay, what's this now? But like, how many times can we pair those things and saying, it's not, oh, you do the dishes, I'll give you a blowjob, but it's like, I'm adoring you. I'm showing you how much you're the man, you're my man, and I need you to help my life, right? And yes, you could go down on me and give me the greatest orgasms as well. And also say at the same time, I love when you clean up the kitchen or make the bed or take the kids out or do whatever. And there's a very connected part in that, not saying I'm going to manipulate you at this time, but just showing you, I appreciate you. I'm not saying only if you do the dishes. I'm just encouraging you, maybe not even in that moment, that, hey, there is some reward system set up that we can make each other feel even better and look how good our life is because we want to please each other even more, right? Don't you think there's parallels?
Totally. I mean, again, it's not the reason I do it. It's not the reason I do the laundry. It's not the reason I do household chores.
It does turn me on when I look at you doing laundry. I cannot even say. I literally have taken pictures and then been like, oh my God, my man's doing laundry. And I'll have fantasies sometimes when you are putting the kids to bed, babe, that like, I'm like, oh, this is my sexy boyfriend. Not like I'm looking for a boyfriend because you're my man, but like just imagining this person loving my babies as much as I do, putting them to bed, being that person for them. Like, who cares if you're their dad? You're the man that is giving them their knowledge of what a man is like. And for me, I get so turned on with you being such a good dad too.
Well, and I think that's important for men to understand is that what turns a woman on is potentially very different than what would turn a man on.
Yes.
But in the same way, we get the same result.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're thinking, okay, me doing laundry, and I'm thinking, wow, she looks hot looking at me doing laundry. Yeah. And then, you know, they come together in a really good way. Yeah. But I mean, again, I believe in servitude in life and being of service and helping people, you know, not obviously trying to make their lives worse in any way. So that's been a part of my life. So, but I just don't get that part of it. And I've said that to you many times, why a man would not be more helpful. If their only goal was just to get more sex, then doing anything to help alleviate the woman's role, just makes sense. Totally, it makes sense. And I'm not even talking about traditional roles, whatever it is. I mean, especially during that post-pregnancy time, I got to think that's the number one thing. If I can help you, then you're going to help me. Yeah,
instead of you're sitting on the couch, I'm running around doing everything. And then you're like, hey,
let's
give me
sex.
The goods. Yeah. Like, it's like, get the hell away because you're annoying me.
Well, and I think the other thing that probably came back is that during that time, postpartum and stuff, is like, it doesn't have to be sex. And that's the other thing. I think maybe women, or I don't know, I'm generalizing, which I hate, but maybe women only think sex is the act that the man wants. But even touching, even, you know, hand jobs and blow jobs and different things like that, even mutual masturbation, whatever it is. I mean, all these different things. I mean, there's different ways to bring it together if you're not comfortable with your man masturbating apart from you. Yeah. Incorporate it.
So true. You got some good points, babe. We haven't talked about so much of this, so this is kind of fun. You know, I really want to we're getting to the end of this. So this is, I mean, having you on the podcast is really a treat, honey. And I really want to kind of maximize it. Was there anything else that you had in your thoughts to bring up? Because I've kind of said, hey, we're going to do this podcast, but given you no direction.
Well, it's the usual thing in our lives, right?
You need to navigate life on your own. You don't need me.
Well, confidence is the thing I wanted to circle back to, because I think there's times and there's fake confidence. And I know that's part of kind of your early relationship is this fake bravado and all this other stuff. But I'm talking about real confidence. And that's the part that, you know, you would argue I'm not good at, is receiving feedback from you about certain things. But I think, again, in that way, you being comfortable enough to tell me something works or something doesn't work, or something's good or something's not good. Like, initially, I think for anyone, there's a little bit of an ego hit where it's like, oh, I'm not good at this. Yeah. But if you really reflect on it, it's like, how did you get good at anything in life? you got good through feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody gave you feedback, whether it's intrinsic or extrinsic or whatever it may be. So you giving me feedback about my performance, like not in a, you don't have to send me, a list and all that stuff, but it's like, even in the moment, it's like, oh, okay, just move this way, or just do this, or turn this position, or do this, or whatever. And like you doing that helps, because I think we're both somewhat clueless about the other person unless they speak.
Yeah. How could you not be? Exactly. That's so, you know what? I mean, that is so true. And I think having that openness to be able to say that without knowing you're going to hurt the other person's feelings, or they're going to all of a sudden, lose in the moment, they're just lost all their libido or whatever, right?
Well, I'm saying they might lose it. They might, like, again, the first time you do it, or the first few times you do it, it might happen that way.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But that's where you have to have the conversation and say, listen, I love everything we're doing. Yeah. I just want us both to have a better experience in some way. And I don't know how you word that. Yeah. Certainly, as I said, like beyond insecurities and different things that exist in relationships. I mean, that's hard to get past. Yeah. Is that understanding? But, again, when it's good for you, it's good for me to a certain extent. Yeah. But like, why can't it be better for me and better for you? And that's the part that comes with it.
Well, and I mean, confidence is one of those things that really does develop. I mean, I don't think it's an overnight thing. And I think with regards to a relationship, I speak to a lot of women who nowadays, more than ever here, 2019, women are kind of like, well, it's not that important if we get married, or, that's just a piece of paper, or, but for me, getting married, being your wife, knowing that, not if we had a couple of bad days of sex, you were going to leave me, but just there's a certain security, I think, for women. And I think it's because of feminism and because, I can do anything that you can do. I don't need a man. This kind of came to light over the last generation or two. And I really honestly have to say that for me, in my heart of hearts, being married to you, taking those vows, being committed meant something. Knowing you were committed to me meant something. I mean, I'm not saying people don't cheat and the whole thing, but that was really, really meaningful to me. And for me to open up over the last decade and know that no matter what we went through, you weren't going to find someone else or leaving at any point in time because we were married and that meant something to us. I think it really is something for people to consider, because so often these days it's like, it's just a piece of paper. Or a lot of us, myself included, grew up with single mom, divorced parents, remarriage, step family, the whole thing, which plays on you. And you go, what's the point of all this? And it's crazy, right? It has one reaction to the other for people. And I do believe that emotional experience plays on you as an adult and does a lot of different things. Do you have anything to say about that?
No, I'm all for that. I mean, if that's again, that what solidified it for you in that way. I mean, that's great. I mean, I do think there's tremendous value to that, because I think it brought us much more comfort in communication. Yeah. Much more comfort in communication.
Like, we were together for what? We got married 10 years ago. We were together for 5 before we got married. So 4 before we got engaged, right? And I mean, we had some times before that where we actually broke up, weren't together, wanted to see, is this really what, because, we knew we were going to get married if we stayed together, right? And that can be very scary for people. I know myself included. I was like, I'm young, really? I'm going to get married? But this guy's freaking awesome. But what if there's someone else, right? We always think that. And sometimes it's not until you do lose that person, you go, well, the grass is not greener. This guy was the man of my dreams. Thank God, we're still together to this day. But I think there's really something to be said about marriage. And I just want to kind of throw that in here, because I think too many women sell themselves short telling themselves a story, or their man, because he says, well, I don't want to get married because my parents got divorced, or whatever the story is. And this is nobody, that I can think of off the top of my head. There's literally been hundreds of these people in my life where I really want to say to them, I know that, but I know you want to get married still.
To play devil's advocate, I think marriage is associated a little bit with complacency, probably. So I think that's something that you have to fight. Like, there has to be a conscious effort. And I know we have a joke within our relationship that you evolve every 3 months into like a new person, new season, new person and stuff like that. But I think I think that's healthy. And I think that's got to be a big part of this as well, is that like, no matter what, you're married, you're not married, you know, that open communication that we talked about, but also that willingness to try things.
Yeah.
Like, again, I could just relate back to eating the same thing every day.
Totally.
How terrible would that be? Be so boring. And I never want our sex life to be that way. And gratefully it's not, because we're both open to trying things. And whether you try it, and it's just like a new food. If you try a new food and you don't like it, you don't eat it again.
Have it. Yeah.
But you tried it.
Yeah.
And it's fine. And it's okay. And if something doesn't work, that's part of the learning experience, and that's part of evolving. And that's so important in this whole process for I think both of us, and why we've hopefully gotten better.
For sure. And I think now with the kids being older, ours are 5 and 7. I mean, my number one thing to be comfortable in the bedroom is they're either dead asleep and far away or not in the house, because my number one thing is I don't want them walking in on us. And I've talked to many of people who walked in on someone, whether it was their parents or someone else's parents, having sex, and that was extremely traumatizing to them as children. So having a lock on the door has been one of those things where it's increased my comfortability. And it's true. The more we communicate, the more comfortable I am, the more confidence we each have, things really open up in a way where I go, I'm not judging myself. You're not judging me. Why don't we try something? And who knows where it can take us to, right?
Well, and I know some people don't have this view, but it's supposed to be fun.
Yes.
Right? Like, some people look at it as this
chore.
As this finite thing, and infinite possibilities when you have sex, and infinite connections. And, you know, for us, again, this moment to be able to learn something about each other, or about, you know, what we like, what we don't like. And that's part of the fun of it.
Well, and our time together, our intimate time, you know, in our bedroom or wherever, has become longer and longer, I think. And because we're exploring stuff, because we're doing stuff, because we're increasing our anticipation, doing more things together, that time is become, instead of, you know, half an hour together, 20 minutes, we have a whole hour where we know we're not leaving the bedroom, and we're just chilling together, and we're getting so intimately connected. And that's something we don't always get with another person. We're so busy. We're so on the kids, doing this, doing that. So having that time, I look so forward to it, knowing, oh my God, the kids are asleep. We can just close the door. I'm not that tired because you've helped me at the house. We're doing things that manage our energy all day, and we aren't exhausted, or we do it in the morning, or we do it in the afternoon, or whatever times, right? Finding a time where we just set that time aside, and we're not rushing. We're not just trying to get to the end, because it's actually the before, the climax, that's the most fun.
Yeah. I mean, again, what's more exciting at Christmas? Is it actually after you've opened the present, or is it the anticipation before you open
looking
the present?
Looking at those presents.
Oh, I see those for a month, and I'm going, oh my gosh, what is it? It's so exciting. And then you open it, and sometimes when you open it, it's like, I don't want to say you're not great. It's just like, okay, I'll open it.
You get that same, whether it's this or that, your you know, whatever. Maybe you have something more you wished for, and then you can go back to it, right?
Well, it's all the play and all the other stuff that it goes with the action of sex that has made it more fun. But I think, again, that comes back to communication. Is like, I think sometimes men think that women don't want it to be very long. Yeah. Right? Like, I think that's a generalization, but it's like, oh, you just want it over with. Oh. But I think, again, like, that's a communication that maybe...
Well, if you're rushed, tired, exhausted...
Well, there's times for sure.
Just trying to fulfill someone else's needs, I could totally see that happening.
But again, like, in our conversations, I'll usually ask you, or I'll usually say, hey, listen, do you want this? And then you'll say no. And then I know sometimes it's like, okay, just get it done. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, fair enough.
Like, again, like, it's all good. I think there's also a generalization that for the man, no matter what, it's always good. Mm-hmm. But that's not true.
You're right.
It's not true. I mean, and I know that because, again, there's always things that can be better. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And that's the part that I admire about you, is that obviously you've been willing to try things and do things, and it's been part of the fun of the process for us, is that, you know, it's not just, okay, it's always going to be good for me. Yeah.
Or it's always the same.
It's always the same. No matter what happens, it's always the same for the man. Yeah. Right? No.
And I can definitely see that's not the case for you. For sure.
No, it's not the case. It's exciting. It's fun. Like I said, and that comes back to fun again and again. That's taboo to say sometimes that sex is fun. what else is it?
Well, one of the things early on you talked a lot about, even before, I was talking about it, and I talk about it a lot at Fit Mama, is this idea of play and being playful. And, I remember even early in our relationship, hand holding or just certain touching or just being somewhere and secretly, you touching me at my back or something that no one else sees. Like, even if it's something so benign almost, it feels so intimate and connected and playful. And then it gets me excited for what else we could do. Instead of it's chore, it's a to-do list, it's an item like I have to scrub the dishes, I have to go blowjob my man. Like, that's just crap.
No, it's a deal. It's a constant process, and like anything, I mean, that's part of the fun too. Is that process, like you said, whether it's sexting or it's we're together and I whisper something or I touch you or I do something and just letting you know that hey,
I'm thinking about you.
Yeah, I'm thinking
but
about you.
But not in a way where you're just like probing me. Like, women get this all the time where it's like, oh my God, he touched me in that way. Or we don't kiss, we don't make out unless he's about to, bone me or whatever. And that's not fun. Like,
well, I'm conscious of that because you brought that up, and maybe that needs to be explained more.
Yeah.
Because I think, again, sometimes, and this isn't an excuse for men, but sometimes they don't know what the woman needs.
Well, or a woman's in a bad mood and they're like, oh, I don't want to this or that, right?
But you're in a bad mood, so you need a hug.
Yes,
yeah, like you need something other than, okay, I'm just going to grope you.
Exactly.
Because I want to have sex. But
exactly. Well, and also realizing too, and I think this is an important point to finish off on is, maybe the first time, like you said earlier, you don't like something, or you've had bad experiences in other relationships where you go, oh my God, I don't like giving blowjobs, or oh my God, I don't like swallowing, or oh, I don't like whatever, right? Him going down on me. And at the end of the day, maybe the first time or second time it is kind of awkward or you aren't sure. But when you tell yourself, and not obviously by brainwashing yourself and making yourself doing something that you don't want to do, but legitimately, you can encourage yourself as how much you love something, right? I can't tell you how many women will say, oh, penis and balls or man's junk or package is ugly, it's gross, it's this. And I'm going, I am so turned on by it. It is so hot. Like my man's, I'm not checking out other people's per se, but I am so turned on, and going down there and playing with you is so fun for me. And has it always been the most fun thing ever that I want to do? No, it hasn't. It's definitely become more fun as I've wanted to do it to please you, and I end up pleasing myself. You know how freaking turned on I am doing that.
Yeah, no, you turning me on turns you on more with that type of thing. But I relate it to yoga pants, right? And you wear yoga pants all the time, and probably early in the relationship, I probably wished you, dressed up a little bit more, dresses or different things like that were a little bit more probably overtly sexual in a sense of me being a male and being stimulated by visual. And eventually now yoga pants are really hot to me. So there you go. So like you adapt, you move on. And, again, the communication part, this is all easier said than done.
Totally.
It's easy. And I think that's the problem. Anytime I've heard someone talk about sex, I just kind of go, well, yeah, great. Easier said than done. But am I really going to talk to my wife about that or my partner about that?
Yeah.
Am I really going to sit her down and say, I really like this?
Yeah.
Because there's fear.
Yeah.
There's fear. And, at the end of the day, it's all based on your comfort and your relationship. But there's moments to talk about it. And I'd say the first one is to try it when you're actually having sex. Is to bring up certain things like.
Yeah, we have the best intimate conversations.
But we haven't always.
Yeah, no.
We haven't always. No. It's just something that's become, and we're not talking about dirty talk. We're talking about actually kind of you sharing a fantasy or a different thing that kind of you potentially think would be hot. And then that opens conversation for future. And, and then the other thing is actually not face to face, which may seem cowardice in a way, but me putting something out there first for you on, an email or sexting or different things like that is kind of easier.
Yeah.
Right? It's easier.
Yeah.
Like if you judge it, then you don't respond.
Yeah.
You usually ignore it or act like, oh, I never got that, or, whatever, whatever it may be. And that's easier in a way. And then you don't talk about it, or it brings up a conversation about it, which would obviously be the best solution to that.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. So true. I think just being honest with yourself and not doing things or saying things that really are not true for you, right? Whether it's the marriage thing and you've just told yourself you don't care about getting married, but you do, or whether you've just told yourself you don't like giving blowjobs or receiving oral or whatever, but you maybe could. It's being real with yourself and knowing that every day is new, every time is different.
I don't know, like if you're a woman who doesn't like giving a blowjob and a man said, hey, listen, I really want a blowjob. Like, are you just never going to give a blowjob?
That's shocking to me. I know.
I don't know. Again, it'd be the same in reverse for the man. It's like if you told me you really like something and I'd be like,
never did it again.
no, I'm never going to do that.
Yeah, I know.
Like, sorry,
yeah.
you're out of luck. I mean, that doesn't seem like a partnership.
No.
You know, and it does, and it seems like a problem. And that's probably what relates to a lot of relationships is like, you want me to do the dishes. And I'm like, I'm never going to do the dishes.
Exactly.
You know, like, well, that's a problem. Like, there can't be a never probably in a relationship. You know, there might be a never once you've tried it.
Yeah.
But I don't think in our relationship there can ever be a never. I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to try that or whatever.
Yeah.
You know? So, and I think, again, be open and honest. But for me, all this comes back in the absence of effort, nothing else matters. Like in the absence of effort, nothing else matters. Like if we're not going to put effort into this, we're not going to get better. Right? We're not going to get better at this or we're not going to have new experiences or try stuff. And
realizing so much that the bedroom and what happens there is a reflection of our whole relationship. If you're saying, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to put in effort in the house or clean this or work or whatever you know, everybody's role is in the house, daddying, whatever, it's like, that's not attractive to me if you're not having this equalness, right? And I remember reading early on in my psychology days that, you know, we always think money or sex or whatever, these things actually are what erodes a relationship. And the number one thing that erodes relationships and really wears them down over time is inequality. And it's not, oh, you do the dishes and I do the dishes. It's we each have our roles and it doesn't matter what they are. It matters that yours is fulfilling my needs to help my life easier, make my life easier, and vice versa. And if you're not feeling like anything I do alleviates your stress and work, well, you're not going to be feeling sexy at the end of the day, the beginning of the day, any time of the damn day.
I'm telling you, the number one thing I think I can do that helps my sex life is when I can take the girls away from the house for a little bit and just like dad and daughter time and we go and I give you your own time. Yeah. And it's not sexual in any way, but it just gives you time for yourself. And that's huge because I know it's huge because it's great for me too.
Exactly.
In those moments, like once you have kids and once you're in a relationship like this, there aren't that many moments where you're alone. Right. So I think that's a big part of it as well. And that gives you those opportunities to be able to recharge, re-energize, or whatever it may be. So,
oh, babe, thank you for seeing that. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for coming here today to talk to me and the Fit Mamas on this podcast. I really appreciate it.
Well, I'd like to say anytime, but I'm not sure. We'll see how this one goes, right?
Thanks, babe. Love you. I love you. Bye. Have a great day, Fit Mama. Namaste.